Hi folks, this is Karim Rao from IT Visualizer channel. We will continue our lab, the Matrix Labs, the video number 42. We have been discussing in the previous video the following. We have still working on viewing the results of the testimony report concerning the Active Directory performance and security and other issues concerning the Active Directory. So this testimony report runs 644 tests that will give you results almost about everything concerning the Active Directory, from the security perspective, from the performance perspective, from the backup perspective. Okay, so a lot of things this this report does. You will see it contains a lot of useful information. Actually, we are discussing the failed points and why we have failed in these points concerning the TestMo tests, and the successful tests and why we have passed these tests. Okay, so we can take a full advantage of this report. Okay, so the previous time we have stopped at the point RDB security, which is the point, or it is a test that makes sure that you have your remote desktop protocol is secure, or in other words, when you remotely connect to a server using the remote desktop connection, this connection should be secure. So you need to have RDB security enabled, or what we mean by that, we mean we need to have the remote desktop connection to be encrypted, so you have minimal encryption level to set at least high. So this is a very important thing to do. Here says minimal encryption level is set at least high. Remote connections must be encrypted to prevent interception of data or sensitive information. So this should be done to any remote desktop connection, and this can be applied using a group policy. We have seen this in the previous video. Today we will discuss another thing. Here is the disk-free test. What this test do, it will check the C partition for the domain controller, okay, or for every domain controller. Specifically now we are seeing the free space on the C partition for the primary domain controller. We can see also is getting the space on the other partitions of the domain controller, like D partition. I have already C and D, and we can see free space here in percentage and free space in gigabytes. Okay, so this test generally see the free space on your partitions on your domain controller. We need here to focus on one point. You need to make sure that you have at least 20% of your C partition to be free. Okay, again, you need to have 20% of your total disk space to be free on the C partition. The C partition contains the operating system of the domain controller. Okay, you need to make sure always the C partition has a free space, so the performance will not be affected. At least 20% to be free. Okay, so this is one thing we need to focus on. We need to make sure we have the C partition have free space. Okay, and the D partition, if you have, for example, applications that are installed on the D partition, you need to make sure that the D partition also have enough free space so these applications can work without any problems, because these applications save their data, for example, or have the database. If it is an application depending on the database, all of this is installed on the D partition. So you need to make sure you have also free space on the D partition. Okay, so this is one thing. And you need, for example, if an application is installed on the D partition, okay, you need to make sure the requirements or the free space this application needs. So, for example, some applications require that you should have enough free space so the application can work without any issues. Anyway, this is your or this is a thing you need to search. But anyway, another recommendation that domain controller or the server that holds the domain controller role should not hold any other roles or applications. So it should be dedicated only for the domain controller. This is one of the best practices Microsoft say about installing and deploying a domain controller. Anyway, so we can see this is the test. Okay, and we see here, this is the result. We can see here is my C partition, and here is the free space. Okay, the used space, the total space, the percentage. I have 93% free, and here I have 99% free. We have only 6% used of the total drive, and we have less than 1% used of the other partition. Okay, so we can see this is very, very useful test to do, not actually on the servers and actually on the workstations. You need to make sure all your workstations, their C partition should have at least 20% free space, because this will affect the performance of the operating system. Okay, we can see, or I have asked the AI a lot of questions concerning what if there is no free space on the C partition for the domain controller. It has said, Claude and other AI tools, it has said that it will affect the performance in general. The Active Directory will be affected, the replication will be affected, everything will be affected. So you need to make sure you have your C partition on a server or on a workstation. You should have at least 20% free space. So this is the test, and then we can go to the next test here. Here is the time setting. We will see a couple of tests concerning the time setting on the domain controller. You need to make sure you have an external NTP server that your domain controller sync its time with. So we all know that the domain controller is the internal NTP server for your network. Okay, this internal NTP server should sync its time with an external NTP or non-external NTP server, so the time is always, or the time on your domain controller is always accurate. Okay, so here is testing and seeing a couple of settings concerning your internal NTP server. First of all, we need to make sure that we have our domain controller as an NTP server. NTP server must be enabled, and NTP server interval should be set. We will see a couple of settings here concerning what is an NTP interval should be set. NTP server should be within known setting. Virtual machine time provider should be disabled. We will talk about each one of these in specific or in details. NTP server should be set to NTP. This means that the domain controller, or this value means that the domain controller is an NTP server. So the feature should be enabled, and the value should be, or there is a certain value should be enabled. So you can enable the NTP server, but the value is not set to NTP. If you, for example, enable NTP server and the NTP server value is not set to NTP, that means that domain controller is a client. It will get its data or gets its time from some external servers. For example, if we see here, we will see that here this is a client. We can see that this is a client. Here he's saying that the domain controller is a client. He is not the internal NTP server, and he's syncing its time with the time.windows.com. This is not correct. We need to solve this issue. First, we need to change this value to NTP and make our domain controller an internal NTP server, and then to sync its time with an external NTP server. All of this will be done using a script, so we will see that in a moment, so don't worry. Let me show you. First of all, I have already recorded this in a video. Just I am discussing the reports with you, the points, and then we will see how this is applied from the video perspective. If you go there and open the video, so this is the primary domain controller findings. Now we can go further up. Again. Here is the disk free. Now we can go to the primary domain controller and run this command to get the free space. So we can run this command to get the free space on our primary domain controller. So log in with the domain admin account. First of all, you need to see that I have some problems with the time. So the time here is 1 hour difference between my host and my guest. Okay, so there is some differences in the time. The time is not correct, so we need to rectify this issue. And this is actually recorded, or it is catched by the testum report. There is some differences between my time or my guest time and my host time, or actually between the real time or the correct time and my domain controller time. I have 1 hour less. Okay, so let's see how we can solve this issue. So we'll open a terminal. We need to open it as an administrator. And then we will run the command. Here you go. This is the command to get the free disk space, okay, on my domain controller. Copy. And then if I try to run the command, you say that he does not recognize. First of all, we need to change the value and put the domain controller. Here we say that he didn't recognize this command, okay, as a valid command, or as a command that is recognized by the PowerShell. Okay, so what we need to do, we need to go to the AI tool and ask it to create a script to give us the free space on my domain controller. So here let's go and see how. Just a moment. If we go further here we see that if we go a little bit further, so let me show you all the script. Here I have already asked Claude to provide me a script to give me the free space on my domain controller. So this is the script, or let me show you the script here. If we go and show you the real script, if we go further, let me show you all the script itself. Here we go. If we go to the free disk space, monitor disk space, identity critical volume, so this is it. Okay, here is the script. Okay, so we can see here a very simple script. Okay, I'm telling it to give me the free disk space on every partition on my domain controller, and at the end he can put something called critical. If he see that one of the partitions have free disk space less than 20%, he will put beside it critical. So you need to take care to free some space. Okay, so this is the script in general, or this is the script and how it is written. Okay, very simple. How can we do that? We can go and ask it in very simple terms. If we go further, okay, I'll tell him I need to create, or I need a PowerShell script to get the free disk space on my server with data like these fields. So I give him some of the data, okay, done by this report. So I'm telling him I need to get, or I need to have a script to get me data similar to this data concerning the free disk space on my domain controller. So I go there and tell him I need to get a free disk space on my server, data like these fields, and add column named critical and value to be true if free disk space is 20% of the total disk volume, or else false. So I put all of this data, and then here was the script. Okay, you can see it or copy. I will try to give it in the link or put it in a link so you can get this data. Anyway, it is very simple. You can ask the AI tool the same question and get it, or get different scripts to get different, or you can use different scripts to get the same result. So let's go and continue. Here I will put the script and then try to run it. Here we can see here that he get the data, okay, and false. Here is the column critical. False, and false means that I am good to go. If this is true, then I need to focus on freeing more disk space. Okay, so this is one thing we need to focus on. So this is one thing. Now we have, or we are sure that we have free disk space on the C partition on our domain controller. I need, or I can say that this task should be done monthly. So you can run this script monthly on your domain controllers to get the free space on your domain controllers. And this also, I prefer this to be done on your clients as well, or on your workstations as well. You need to have a way to calculate the free disk space on the C partitions on all of your workstations to make sure that the operating system on these partitions are working perfectly without any problems. So there is a lot of tools that can do that, or you can use a script to do that. Okay, you can make this script to run on a scheduled task using the task scheduler in Windows, for example. This can export a text file, you can revise it maybe monthly or so, or you can have a tool or a third-party tool or free tools that can do that. Anyway, I think a script is fine. If you have a small number of workstations and servers, this can be done, I think, using a script. If you have a lot of workstations and server, at least you should run this on your servers, because servers are critical or hold critical roles. Okay, anyway, so there is a lot of ways you can calculate free disk space on your workstations and your servers. Okay, anyway, so this is the script. So now I think we can go to the next point, which is time or time syncing or time setting. Okay, so I think we can go to the next point, which is the time syncing. If you go further down, the time setting. So here we are checking the time setting on our domain controller. We need to make sure all of the time setting are correct. We need to make sure that the domain controller is an NTP server, NTP server interval. We need to check what are these intervals specifically. Here is saying NTP server intervals. It is a client. What we mean by that, we need to see or revise this test or this setting. Okay, NTP server should be within known setting. Okay, virtual machine time provider should be disabled. This is one important thing, and we can see we have two findings here concerning this test. First of all, virtual machine time provider should be disabled. What we mean by that? We mean by that our domain controller should not take its time from its host. If it is a virtual machine, we mean that the domain controller is a guest. It should not take its time from the host hosting the domain controller virtual machine, especially if it is a Hyper-V host. Okay, we need to make sure that the time is taken from the external NTP server. This should be disabled. For example, again, we don't need for example, the domain controller guest machine to take its time from the host holding the domain controller virtual machine. So this should be disabled, and now it is enabled. And NTP server should be set to NTP. This is another thing. It's here set to NT5DS5. This means that my domain controller is a client. It takes its time from another server, which is not correct. We need to make it. We need to make the domain controller the NTP server. This means that your domain controller is not an NTP server. Here the feature is enabled, but it's not set. It is enabled, but it is not set. Here the domain controller is not set to be the NTP server. He is a client. Okay, So what we need to do, we need first to change these two values. We will see how we can do that using a script. So first of all, we can change this value using a script, and this will be disabled from a registry key. So we can do both. But anyway, I need to see the setting here. This setting, we need to see what does it talk about, okay? Or we need to interpret this data, or to know what's talking about, what we mean by NTP server intervals, and a lot of things. So let's see if we can take the data. Let's go and see the data here. If we go and let me get the data. Okay, so here we go. We need to go and get this data. Here you go. This is the data. We can copy it like that, and we can go and tell Claude, we can start a new chat, explain this data concerning the time setting on my domain controller. So let's see the data here. First of all, we need to go and copy. How we can copy the data? Copy to clipboard, and we can go and put it like that and see the answer. Let's see that. Okay, so let's see here what is the answer. Here is saying that the first row, NTP server time.windows.com, this is the NTP server your domain controller is configured to use for time synchronization. NTP type NT5DS, this indicates that the time service synchronized from the domain hierarchy, so it is taking its time, or taking its internal time, okay, from another server within the network. So this is not correct, okay? The domain controller should be the source of the time, not to be taking its time from another internal source. So this should be changed, okay? And apply GPO. This suggests that the setting have been applied using GPO. The time setting is applied using GPO. VM time provider, true. This indicates the VM specific time provider is enabled. This he didn't explain in details, but I'm sure here, or here he's saying that the guest or the virtual machine is taking its time from the host, which is not correct. We need to disable it. Windows secure time seeding, false. Windows secure time seeding is disabled. We need to further elaborate on this this section. I think it's simple. It's saying that Windows secure timing, or it should sync its time with a secure time server, maybe. Let's see what does this mean. Announce flag 10. This is the default value for domain members, which determines how the computer announces itself as a time server. 10. This is the default value for domain members, which determines how the computer announces itself as a time server. So this is a value, I think, to announce itself as the time server. NTP server enabled, true. NTP server functionality is enabled on the domain controller. NTP input provider, false. This suggests the domain controller is not configured to accept time from external source. So here is the problem. He is not getting his time from an external source, okay? So this is, even though he's saying here he's taking the time from time.windows.com, okay? But here, I think here there is an issue here, okay? Max most phrase correction and max phase correction 172. This is the maximum positive and negative time correction in seconds. Okay, I think this is the time that is allowed to be, or there is a difference in time maybe 48 hours, the maximum positive and negative corrections in time. It can correct the time for 48 hours. Maximum allow phase offset 300. This is the maximum time offset before a time correction is applied. I think here this is the maximum offset before a time correction is applied. Time interval. Okay, let's make it more simple because I think we need to explain it in layman terms. So let's see the simple answer. Here is saying that your domain controller, it gets its time from the internet, especially from time.windows.com. It's also set up to share this accurate time with all other computers in your network. The settings are controlled by your network policy, so it is standardized across your system. It checks time regularly, about every 17 minutes. If the time is off by more than 5 minutes, it will correct itself. If the time is off by more than 5 minutes, it will correct itself. It wouldn't make any huge time jumps, though it limits corrections to a maximum of 48 hours to avoid any distraction. It wouldn't make any huge time jumps, though it limits so and so. It's set up to work well in business network, allowing computers in different locations to sync up. The computer is also smart about how often it checks the time, not too often to waste resources, but frequently enough to stay accurate. So he is trying to explain all of this data in a very, very simple way. Anyway, we have here a problem concerning this test. First of all, we have some time differences. We will see in the upcoming tests that we have some time differences. We need to first disable virtual machine time provider and to set our domain controller to be the internal NTP server. Okay, this should be done. And the next test here that he is having time synchronization internal, all of the workstations and servers or all of the workstation server are in sync with the domain controller clock. Okay, but if we go to the next one, time synchronization external, this is what we need to change. Here the domain controller time is not in sync with the external NTP server. We need to change this or to fix this. So let's see how this three tests. So we have three tests. We need to bypass them all. We will do all of that, or we pass all of these tests using one script. Okay, so let's see how we can do that and how we can disable some features here. So let's see that. So we can go further here. If you try to get this or run this command on my domain controller, it will not work. So here I am on my primary domain controller. I will use a script to to sync the time. Here, for example, we have 1 hour differences between my host and my guest. This is only a reference. I will not sync my time with my host, but the time in Egypt is actually 3:57, not 2:57. So we will sync the time of the domain controller with an external NTP server. We will see how this will be done using a script. This can be done using a group policy, by the way. So let me show you all how this will be done. If we go and open the script, we have something called NTP NTP setting or NTP server. I will show you all this script. I have used it before It's a very simple script, NTP script. Open. We will see a couple of things here. This is the NTP servers we will use to sync our time or our domain controller time with this external NTP server. They are very known external NTP servers called pool.ntp.org. You can go and check the server that you will sync your time with. For example, here I am in Egypt, so I need the Africa server to sync my time with. There is no specific server for Egypt. Okay, so here I'm syncing my time with Africa after consulting the website itself. So the website, when I go and try to see an NTP server in Egypt, he said no, but you can sync your time with the Africa NTP server. So now I have these two servers, and this line will apply this, or will tell my domain controller to use these two external NTP servers. Then we will stop the time or the Windows time service and start it again, and then we can see that we have successfully set NTP servers, server 1 and server 2, with a green output. Let's see if after changing or after applying this script, if the time will be synced. Okay, so if we go and I can show you all the NTP server itself. Here you go. If you go and ask pool NTP server, if you go there, here is the server. This is the website of the servers. Okay, this is, you can see here is Africa, there is Asia, there is Europe. So you can choose your content or continent. Here you can see that this is all of the servers in Africa. If you go to Egypt, where is Egypt? You can see 0 servers. We don't have in Egypt any servers. If I go there, he's saying that we need more servers. There are not enough servers in this zone. We recommend using the Africa zone. So here I choose this one. Okay, so now we can go and continue and see the result after applying the script. And actually there is a website, or there's a URL you can apply, or we can set the external NTP servers using a script or using a group policy. So this can be done. As for this, so first, after applying the script, this setting will be applied, or the server, the domain controller, will be set to be an NTP server. So this will be gone away, or it will be good. It will turn from red to green. But as for this one, this should be applied, or should be changed from a registry key. If we go further, let me show you all. First of all, here is my domain controller, and you can see the time now is in sync. Okay, so the time is synced correctly. If we go further, let me show you a little bit of a URL. So here is this URL, how to configure your NTP time syncing or NTP external servers. If we go there, open this one. Let me go there. Here you go. This is the link, or this is the link for setting your external NTP servers. And here is stating VMIC time synchronization provider. If you are using a virtualized domain controller, time is synced with the hypervisor host by default. This should be disabled. Okay, so this is what the report is talking about. So we need to disable the syncing of the guest time with the host time. Okay, this should be disabled on the PDC, and there is the registry key. Okay, and again, this is a command. If you type this command, the domain controller, he will give you the time, or what the domain controller time is syncing its time with what server. This is very critical to know what are the servers, or what are the time servers your domain controller is syncing its time with. So this is very good. Okay, First of all, if you run this command and you get, for example, that it's getting its time from the CMOS or from the time or from the host, then you should quickly change these values. Okay. First of all, if you query for the source of your time or your domain controller time server, so for example, the domain controller is syncing its time with the CMOS clock or with the host, this should be changed. Okay, this should be changed. Okay, here we can see here in this URL, it will tell you how to do that. So first of all, I need to disable this. Simply by, we can change these values. First of all, this will be changed using a registry key, and this can be changed by setting your domain controller to sync its time with external NTP servers with the script that we have done from a couple of minutes. We can see here, for example, here is an example of the output. If you tell him local CMOS, so this should be changed. Okay, this can be done using the script that we have used from a couple of seconds. As for the virtual, or for to sync its time with the virtual provider or VM time synchronization provider, this will be changed from the registry. Okay. So again, here my server has crashed. I'm just powering off and then powering on again. So here we can see the time is in sync. Okay. We have here or login with the domain admin account. He is even giving you how to do this using a script. Okay, so he's giving you the same that it is the same content for my script. Okay, and then he's giving you very detailed documentation how to change or to sync your time with an external NTP server using a script and using a group policy. So we will use this as a reference. We will now do this one by one. So you can use this as a reference to configure NTP time sync group policy or scripts. We can do this. So actually, I am not using the hypervisor Hyper-V. But again, if you are using VMware, you need to make sure that this setting. So for example, even though I am not using Hyper-V, this setting is enabled. So I need to disable it. And if I'm using Hyper-V or using VMware, you need to make sure the following setting is disabled. If you go to, this is the VMware. Okay, you need to make sure that the following setting is not enabled. So the virtual machine will not sync its time with the host. If you go to the edit virtual setting, and for the options for the VMware tools, sync guest time with the host, this should not be checked. Okay, so this is if you are using VMware as your hypervisor. As for Hyper-V, you should disable this from the client side, okay, using, or from the guest side using a registry key, and also you should check the host side or your Hyper-V host. You need also to check a similar option in the Hyper-V like that one. Okay, I think if I go to the link, let me see, I think I have it already here. If I go to the Hyper-V, let me see that in a moment. Let's see that here. Where is the time? Okay, here it is. Okay, so we have seen this option here in the setting. Okay, for the Hyper-V, we have seen that. Sorry, for the VMware. If you go for the Hyper-V, here you go. Here it is, this one. Okay, we can go to the setting and see that the time synchronization is disabled. Okay, so you need to do this from the host side and from the client side. If we go there, we will see we need to disable this registry key. Okay, So this is one thing we need to focus on, okay? Especially if this virtual machine is the domain controller. And actually also this should be done for the clients as well, if you are using a virtual environment, okay? Or workstations. So here let's open and disable this registry key on my domain controller. So now we need to do this from the command prompt, okay? And then we can get, first of all, we need to see our time source, what server we are syncing the domain controller time with. So we can see here now we are syncing with an external NTP server. So we are not syncing with the CMOS clock or the WISE clock or from my host time or my host clock, okay? But this can be done, okay, for the Hyper-V. Remember that. This is done for the Hyper-V, not for the VMware, okay? So we need to we need to see the registry key and disable it. So this should be disabled. So we'll copy that and run it from the PowerShell. First of all, I need to see it from the registry. So I go to the registry or regedit and see the time. So here I'm getting the registry key itself. Current control set, Windows time providers, okay, and then we can see, I think, in VM time provider, as we can see, time providers, VM time provider, okay. As we can see here, this is enabled, okay. Here you go, this is it. No, if you go to this is enabled, we need to disable it, okay. So this means that it will sync its time with the Hyper-V host if it's working with Hyper-V. Okay, so we'll copy that and change it or apply it through the PowerShell. Copy. Copy that and go there, and we can go to the terminal and apply it, and you will return back to the registry to see if it is applied or not, okay? So now we can go and copy, okay, paste and press enter. Now we have it. So if I return back and make a refresh, okay, we need to make a refresh, edit and refresh, okay. Now we can see now it is set to 0, okay. Now this is very simple. Now we have this done using registry, okay, or now we have everything done. Now we can take the configuration or see the configuration of our domain controller or the time setting of our server. Now we can see, for example, here that the type NTP, this was, or the type of the NTP server is NTP. This was before a different value. Okay, so this was NTSD5, for example. Now this is changed to what the report needs. Okay. So now we are our report or our test should be successful because we have changed or we have disabled the virtual time provider, and we have our type set to NTP. If you see that, see this one, type NTP, this is the one. Okay, if we go there, the type was set to NT5DS. This should be set to NTP, and now this is done already. Okay, this is set to NTP. Okay, this should be done. Okay, so he's saying that this should set to be NTP. Here is the type, it is NTP. So now we have everything corrected using a script and a registry key. Okay, you can do this through a group policy. Please revise the URL to know how to do that using a URL. Okay, so I think this will not or this command will not work anyway, so we can continue. I think this can be okay. Okay, anyways, I think I'm logging in with the domain admin account. So I think, let me see how much time we have been working on. We have 46 minutes. Okay, we can work further than that. Okay, so now we can apply this using a group policy. By the way, this can be done using a group policy, so you can apply or you can sync your domain controller time with external NTP servers using a group policy or using a script. The easier way is to use the script, by the way. So let me show you both ways. Okay, the group policy, then you should work with the domain controller's group policy. Here you go. Okay, and this is explained in the URL. Okay, so you can follow the steps. Edit, then policies, then administrative templates. Okay, and as we can see here, we can follow the steps. Okay, and then we can see here the administrative template system, Windows time service, time providers, and then we can follow the steps. Okay, there is already a group policy named domain controller, so you can use the default domain controller's group policy. So now we can go and see the rest. Okay, Windows time service. Okay, and then time providers. Here we can go configure NTP, so we can now change this setting according to the URL, but I will not change it because I have already applied everything using scripts. So this is very simple, and I think this contains a lot of useful commands. You can use the Windows time configuration on your server. You can change the setting of the Windows time on the server, and you can apply external NTP servers using also one of these commands. Okay, so we can see here configure NTP client. So these are all settings, okay, that you can play with from the group policy. So anyway, I will not do any one of these because I have already, as I said before, I have already changed or done this through a script. So now we can go and continue the other tests. Okay, So here I'm trying to see if I have the command for time. Anyway, so we'll try to run the command and see if it will get all the time setting. Let's see if we can get any data concerning time difference. There is already a time difference. So here another good command here that we can tell him to W32 monitor. If we first of all we can see the status of the time sync. Okay, first of all, if we can, for example, if you need to know if there is any differences between your domain control time and the external NTP server time, there is a command to do that. But first of all, we need to see the status, okay, or see the status of the time. If you do like that, query status, here we can see that there is a couple of data here. For example, last successful syncing time, okay, with the external NTP servers, and these are the NTP servers. Okay, so this is a lot of useful data. Okay, we can see a lot of things here useful. For example, stratum 3 means that we don't sync our time with directly with an NTP server. Okay, because this NTP server or external NTP server takes its time from another external NTP server or two external NTP servers. So this NTP server or external NTP server is taking its time from another two external NTP servers. So he's the third server in order. Okay. So anyway, so this, if you can see any delay, for example, you don't have any delays, is 0.24 milliseconds, I think. So anyway, this is to know the status of the synchronization. And if we need to know the data and what does it refer to exactly, we can go to the AI tools to explain this kind of data. Here, this other command to see if there is uh, any delay in time. Okay, so maybe from here we don't know if there is any delay in time or there is any differences between the time of the domain controller and the time with the external NTP server. This will not appear from here, so the other one or the other command will show you exactly. Okay, we can see here this command displays the time difference between each DC and external time source server. Here is analyzing the two, or we have two domain controllers. Here we say that the first domain controller plus 0000, that means we don't have any delay. Okay, the other one, the other domain controller, is saying its time. He's saying that he cannot reach it because it is already closed. So from this section, we can know if there is any delay. ISMP, I think this is for the ping. There is no delay in ping, and this NTP plus 0 plus plus plus, that means that we don't have any delay in time. If we take this data and tell the AI tools to explain it, it will tell us a lot of useful information. So here I'm taking this data and ask the AI tool to explain it. Okay, so we can know exactly what this data is talking about. So here I'm putting the data. Anyway, I think this is not okay. I think this is not correct. Anyway, so so let's go further. like that. No, so I need other thing here. No, I need the data itself. Just wait for a moment. No. So I think here, let me show you the explanation of the data that was displayed here. So first of all, here is explaining each one of these lines. This was the output of w32/monitor command. Here is the server he is syncing with, ISMP. So this is the external NTP server. This is the IP of the external NTP server. ISMP 0 delay stands for Internet Control Message Protocol, which is used for sending error messages and operation. Refers to the ping time response. Okay. And here we can see here that this is the time difference. Actually, we don't have any time difference. Okay. Here we can see that there is a couple of differences. If this is with positive plus 0,0000, it means we don't have any time difference. If it is in negative, then we are slightly ahead of the NTP clock by 0.03456 seconds. Okay, so this is one good indicator. Okay, and this is the ref ID, stands for reference identifier, which shows the source of the NTP using to sync the time with. Anyway, so stratum here is another one thing we need to understand. If you have stratum 3, for example, this indicates the distance from the reference clock source in terms of NTP accuracy. So there is some NTP servers in order. Stratum 1 is the most accurate, directly connected to the reference clock. Stratum 2 servers synchronize their time with the Stratum 1 server, and so on. So this is one of the things what we mean by stratum. Okay. So here I think I will get the data. Okay, so here I will get the same data and ask the AI tool to explain it. So now we can copy that, okay, and tell the AI to explain it. Here we go. Or we take all of it, copy, and paste. Terms. Okay, now we can see this is the name of our primary domain controller, and this is, so you can see here is the primary domain controller. He is a PDC, and this shows the IP address of the primary domain controller. ISMP, the internet protocol used sending error messages that indicates that the ping responds milliseconds to the external NTP server. This is one good thing. Okay, and then we have plus plus so on. So there is no time difference between the required server and itself, the local time machine. So this is what we are seeking. Okay. This is for the external NTP server, the NTP server using to sync its time with. Okay. So this is a very, very good explanation of the data. As for stratum here, he's saying that here 3 means that the primary domain controller is a stratum 3 server which gets its time from stratum 2. So stratum 1 is the most accurate, stratum 2 is the less accurate, stratum 3 is our domain controller. So stratum 3, our domain controller, is syncing its time with stratum 2, and stratum 2 is syncing its time with stratum 1. Stratum 1 is the most accurate one, or this is the source or the reference clock source. The second one, it is the duplicate or maybe a replica from stratum 1. Okay, and we are stratum 3. And as for the second domain controller, he is out, so because it is already closed. And then we can see here the summary. The primary domain controller is synchronized with an external NTP server. This is the server and has no time offset from itself. Another server in a network is not responding to ping or NTP requests, indicating a possible network issue. So very simple explanation of the command. Because I have already my additional domain controller closed. Okay, so I think we need to stop. First, let me show how much time we have. I think let me first stop at the next test. Okay, if we go there to the next test, which is get all network interfaces and firewall status, we will stop at this section and complete the next video. Hope this video is informative for you all, and thank you all for viewing. Thank you so much.